Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Media Matters by Anfield Index. We weren't quite sure when we'd be doing this one because there were suggestions it would be a Milos Monday. The original Ornstein articles and stories had Tuesday, then Wednesday came and nothing happened. But like the opposite of a Craig David story, it finally landed at midday today, didn't it? Thursday, the 26th of June, midday, Milos Kerkez was announced as a Red. So it's all positive from that point of view. And I'm joined as ever by the renowned and the respected David Lynch. I mean, we've got to get straight into this, David. It's almost been the worst kept secret in football since Milos Kerkez started retweeting, putting eye emojis on everything, his dad, his brother, everything like that. It's been sort of drawn out in that way, but we should still be excited by this one, shouldn't we?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one, really, because sometimes, and it's happened in the past where you've had a target previewed for so long that sometimes they end up going for an alternative because, people buy into the first link that you hear, it's going to be them. And sometimes it does end up being an alternative. And I think there was something in the links to Ait Nouri, for example. I know that he was a player that they kind of liked. Maxim de Kuiper, is it? Also, someone who was kind of on the radar. They've been kind of, light contact there, I will say. But I think what's become clear for, the further we've gone along with this really is that they were kind of a backup, really, and Milos Kerkez was very much the first choice at left back if they could get him, and they've definitely kind of got that. And I think, as long as it's been previewed, I still think it is an exciting signing because it's the area of the team that is probably most ripe for improvement. And you're improving a title-winning side, so that's exciting in itself. And he's also, he's exciting as well as a player because he just offers so much, and he's very young as well, but he's already very good and he can get even better. So, a lot to like about this, really. And I do think it's an exciting signing, even though we've seemingly known about it since about March.
I was going to say that this does feel like it's been going on for ages. And with Kerkez, we've had plenty of comments before he even signed. We've had plenty of comments. Now he's signing, there'll be interviews, and no doubt the family members will get involved. Anything you've sort of seen or read in the last week or so that stood out for you at all?
Yeah, I kind of really liked in this interview, actually, where he talked about Szoboszlai saying to him that, you come here and this is kind of the pinnacle of football, really. I like that. And I feel like you've kind of heard similar things from Frimpong, similar things from Wirtz as well when he signed. And the reason I kind of like that, really, is I just think we've seen a shift in the last couple of years, and particularly off the back of last season, really, in how Liverpool is viewed in European and world football now. I mean, for years and years, we've always said, haven't we, Liverpool is one of the biggest clubs in the world, and that's absolutely true. They go to, even when they were a bit crap, they go to pre-season and you turnouts are unbelievable. We know it's a worldwide club. But what I think now is kind of its status within modern football now has really reached a level that puts it on that kind of, pedestal, really, in terms of Liverpool is seen alongside Bayern Munich. It is seen alongside Barcelona, Real Madrid, all these kind of giants, alongside and possibly above at the moment, Manchester United. It's that kind of name now. And I know it always has been, as in European royalty, and they've won things. But I mean, with the modern younger player, I don't think that kind of pull was there in recent years. I think they've really had to have this kind of fresh and sustained success in recent years to kind of really re-establish themselves at the top table of European football. And I think you can just see that in Kerkez's his quotes there. I think you can see it in his desperation to sign. Similarly with Frimpong, the fact that Wirtz chose Liverpool, it just all backs it up, really. I think Liverpool really, really are. This one's not necessarily the statement signing, but I really do think they are now back, at the real peak of European football and a real big hitter again, which is, it's been a slow and arduous road back to that. But it's, I think it says a lot about the work done by this ownership and Jurgen Klopp and all the players that have come before to get them into this position whereby players are kind of begging to get there, really.
I love it, yeah. And it's the way people have been talking about it now as a destination club. It's the place that players want to end up at above all others. And yeah, I mean, we can talk about who he's turned down as well. But the one thing that, and maybe it will surprise people, We had the inclination that obviously he flew in on Monday. People did the flight tracking as normal. It was all supposed to be sort of Tuesday was the intimation. And then there was kind of not a wind back, but a thing from David Ornstein about almost it sounded like the fax machine was broken or there was little odds and ends to sorts type of thing. And then nothing came on Wednesday. Was it a bit strange the way this was done, or is this just standard that way it can work with transfers?
My knowledge of things is kind of when I was at the club, certainly as soon as it was done, you will put it out. So I don't think, there must have been something. They've not been sat on that interview or taking the time editing it or anything like that, or working out what the pictures are going to look like. It's nothing like that. It will be something technical on the transfer side, I imagine. And in my experience in the past, a lot of the time, sometimes if there's had to be a little delay or whatever, it's usually kind of related to a visa or something like that. So wouldn't be surprised if it was that, because the nuts and bolts of the transfer, there was no question that was done. Nobody had any concerns on that. So I think it might have just been a little bit of paperwork with the Home Office or something like that, because that typically has been in the past, in recent history anyway, has been a little bit of a stumbling block that can take a few days or whatever. So my guess is that it was that really, and but it's all sorted now, and they could announce him today.
And I suppose on this, and it's interesting the way it's worded by yourself and other patch journalists. The story is very much, it's that phrase, up to 40 million, which indicates it isn't just a flat 40 million. Is it your understanding it could get to that amount?
Yeah, but Liverpool would usually as well kind of want to make out that they've got a bargain there as well, and will publicise that. So I don't think they're probably going to be a million miles off 40 million, to be honest. I think it will, if they're much lower than that, it's probably not. It's not probably 35 million or anything like that, plus 5 million in add-ons, because I think Liverpool, it would have been worth their while to put that story out there to show just how good of a deal they got. So I'm sure it's the top end of that, really. But I still think, Bournemouth were pretty hardline, weren't they, about wanting 45 million and not wanting to budge on that. So to get him for 40 million, I think is still a decent fee. And, it's expensive for a left back, but we're talking about, one of the best left backs in the Premier League. I mean, he's got to be top three at the moment, hasn't he? And he's only 21. He's going to get a lot better in the next few years as well. So he's got all the ingredients to do that. So, if he stays at left back, as Andy Robertson did for the next kind of 8 years or so, you'd be absolutely delighted with that, wouldn't you, for 40 million? So, could end up proving to be a snip. But of course, he's got to go and do it on the pitch now.
Yeah, he's got to go and do his talking on the pitch. Absolutely. And maybe we've got a new character in the mix, because Papa Kerkez maybe replaces Papa Diaz, and we'll talk about that as well shortly. But they've done well to keep Papa Kerkez under wraps, haven't they, until today, and not having anything for him. I mean, have you got a feeling he could develop into a character we're talking about more?
Well, we've seen it with Luis Diaz, his dad, enough, haven't we? Seen, he's a big character. I mean, obviously what happened to him was terrible, but I mean, in terms of his character around the place, when you see with his, he's dancing and celebrating the goals and stuff, and in the away end all the time. So maybe we've got another one of those, another character like that, which would be great. It's funny actually, because I heard a lot about him being a Manchester United supporter, his father or whatever, but I'm not seeing a lot of signs of that now. He seems absolutely delighted to get into Liverpool, doesn't he? I think you've seen the clip of him playing Allay, Allay, Allay in the car as well by Jamie Webster. So, I think he's a hardened Coppite now, which for someone who used to support United is quite the transition, really. So, I think he seems really pleased that his son's a huge club like Liverpool, and I'm sure he'll be supporting him all the way as well. And I'm sure he'll be getting in that away end as well without too many credits as well. So that's there'll be comments on that as well. But he seems like a character, doesn't he? Absolutely.
I won't mess with him, I'll tell you that as well. So it was certainly a new one on board. And I almost think like a week ago we were talking that it was always going to happen. Kerkez was going to come in, and the natural sequence of events felt like Andy Robbo, the Atletico Madrid talks. And it was funny even that in his interview, Milos Kerkez actually mentioned Andy Robbo as the best fullback in the Premier League. And then there's a bit of a story developed today. Not that it really matters about the player, but Atletico Madrid are set to sign a left wing back, which then makes you think, well, 3 doesn't go into 2 ultimately. So I don't know if this was expected by sort of yourselves and the patch journos, but it seems to have caught a lot of fans on the hop. And there's a bit of a suspicion of what's going to happen at left back now.
Yeah, it's an interesting one with Robbo. I certainly, I asked around actually off the back of that news coming out in terms of, does this mean we can rule it out? And no one kind of said yes yet. So, maybe it is still on the table. I think people generally they would be in a position to say, okay, well, yeah, it's probably not happening now, but no one's kind of saying that yet. So, maybe one to keep an eye on. I don't really know what they've got at left back and whether it's a situation they still might sign another or whatever. But it's a bit of a straight, or whether this guy's to come in and I don't know, to play if he's a left wing back to play as a kind of winger or whatever. You never know with Simeone, do you? So it's an interesting one. But yeah, the latest I asked, and it was no one was kind of putting it off the table yet, but you don't really know, and maybe people are keeping the cards close to their chest on that one. But it is an interesting one. And if that option not to go to Atletico Madrid is there, then is Andy Robertson so desperate that he just takes whatever's on the table to go elsewhere, or does he sit it out and maybe do another year at Liverpool? It's a fascinating one. And then, of course, what does that mean for Tsimikas, whose language has kind of softened a little bit around an exit as well recently, which, again, maybe he's looked at what's out there and thought he doesn't fancy it. It's fascinating. But as you say, they've got 3 left-backs now, so they're going to have to do something. And he must be confident that they can do something. So, really, really interested to see how that all plays out, and very, very hard to call, I would say, on the information I've got available to me.
It's a tough one because, whichever way it gets dressed up, Kerkez is coming in to be the starter and, go there and obviously develop that. There's absolutely no way all 3 of those left backs are at the club next season, isn't there? One's going to go, even if it's we can start with a gentle nudge, but it feels like it could get to a forceful push by the end of the summer.
Yeah, this is it. They're not going to be wanting to pay 3 left backs at the end of the day. And, Robertson's on decent money. Tsimikas is. Kirz won't come in for peanuts either. So, from a squad building perspective, it makes little sense to have the 3. But I also think if you get kind of later in the window, all 3 aren't going to want to be sat there either. Whoever's kind of left around, the third choice out of those 3 is going to have to kind of make the big choice, aren't they, in terms of what they want to do. So it's going to be interesting from that perspective. But as you say, Kerkez, he's spending 40 million on the left back. He is absolutely going to be the one who starts the majority of the game. So, it's kind of up to Tsimikas and Andy Robertson now to battle it out and work out how that's going to play out. But it's really, really interesting.
Does feel like one that could run for a little bit there. And George saying, Tsimikas to go, please, and keep Robbo based on quality rather than financial or age considerations. People have got a fair few views on that one. But back to Mr. Kerkez. I know you've written about him. He's a fascinating player off the pitch, but mainly on it, where he brings sort of his energy and threat. So just for those that haven't read the article yet, what are the big things in sort of the research and the writing that stood out for you?
Yeah, I think I've spoken about this before, but one of the things I was kind of a little bit, concerned about when the initial links came out. This was towards the very start of the season. Actually, it's kind of, what's his output like on the attacking side of things, and it wasn't that hugely impressive actually. But then, by the end of the season, he just seemed to kind of he just improved on that every single week, really, and you kind of saw that in his numbers. I think he ends up, I think it's 4 fullbacks who end up with more assists than him in the Premier League last season. So he's right up there for that. I think he gets 6 in the end. But in terms of, he's obviously his defensive numbers, just to quickly touch on those, he's tackling more, he's intercepting more, and he's winning challenges at a higher rate than Robertson. So he's a better and a more aggressive defender than this version of Robertson. He's more akin to kind of Pete Robertson in that regard. And then on the attacking side, as I say, because you've seen that kind of, that improvement in him, I say, the assists are pretty good, but he's also kind of shows up really well for dribbles, and he shows up really well for, crosses into the penalty area. So last season, he managed 27 of those, which put him second in the Premier League. Now, Andy Robertson used to regularly appear in the kind of top 10 for that statistic when he was in his prime. So the 18-19, 19-20 season, I think he was in the top 10 for crosses into the penalty area. And both those seasons, those are the seasons you regard as his prime. Kerkez is doing that now. So he's not only kind of doing all the defensive things and he's got the aggression and all the physical quality it brings. The attacking stuff is just going up and up and up. And he's doing very early Andy Robertson things, which I just think that's exactly what you want, isn't it? You want a left back who is exactly like Andy Robertson, because he was very, very, very good, and he still is quite good. So, I just think that all the numbers that you look at there are extremely kind of convincing and encouraging. And, with a bit more time, he's going to get even better. So that's absolutely massive as well.
It is funny, like when you mention the statistics, and I'm looking at the few articles today, but as you mentioned, when they look at assists from open play, he's third in the Premier League. Anthony Robinson, the Fulham left back, is at the top. But also, as you mentioned, just open play passes, as they call it, into the box. He's second, just behind Robinson. And people, if you want a deep dive, if you just want to search data MB Kerkez, I mean, a lot of his statistics, they do stand, obviously, with senior fullbacks and across the Premier League. And he is a nominee, it's important to say, for the PFA Young Player of the Year. So that's by his compatriots at the same time. But it won't have gone unnoticed by the club when they're researching him. When you look at top 5 leagues under 21 fullbacks, he comes top in like duels, touches, progressive. There's just a raft of things there. They are seeing all those statistics into the long term, aren't they?
Yeah, this is it. And I mean, what's great about that as well is because Bournemouth are a very good side, so they're kind of front-footed, and that will be helping him. But Liverpool are even more so. So he has more chances to get more touches, to receive more progressive passes. So when you kind of you create a kind of a web to compare the two players and you put them next to each other, Robertson shows up higher in a lot of the kind of attacking statistics. But you've got to factor in that it's only marginal for starters, but that Robertson gets more opportunities to do all these things. And so you put Kerkez into this team, and I really think like his numbers are going to explode next season, even more so on that attacking side, not least as well because he's also crossing to better players, better finishers, putting better movement in front of him. So it's just massively encouraging. And I think he's only 21 and he's this good, and you just think, how good is he going to be when he's 25? And it's a really kind of exciting prospect, and it's just gives you that instant improvement down that left-hand side, which was not as weak as people said, but it was a weakness for Liverpool last season. So he's just a really exciting signing, really.
It is crazy. And I mean, we've said before, Arne Slot talked about the PSG model and looked at their flying fullbacks such as Nuno Mendes, Hakimi. He's now got Frimpong, who was third in the Bundesliga for crosses into open play. Kerkez, similar. Both almost just rapid fullbacks, road runners almost in that regard. Do you think that is going to be a big feature of the play next season? We are going to see more of the fullbacks just going past like road runners?
Yeah, I hope so, because I just think, what that does in terms of causing chaos for other players is so useful. And I just think, you looked at Liverpool last season, I do think they lacked a little bit of pace through the team. And they've definitely added that in those two. I mean, Wirtz is absolutely no slouch either, is he? So, they're adding some real pace to the side, which I think is something, as I say, they lack. So that's really good. And I just think teams with overlapping fullbacks that really get on the bike are they're exciting to watch, and it just works in terms of disorganizing the opposition defense. So you've got a guy like this coming in who's absolutely rapid, can get up and down, he's tireless, but he can also provide a quality pass or cross when he's there. It's just everything you need, really. And a lot of the time he's basically on that overlap. He's going to be acting as a kind of winger, an old school winger, kind of 96, 97 season type forward, but which means crossing with quality, not just kind of clipping it into the box. And you can back him to do that, and you can back him to have the pace to get there and the pace to beat people as well. So it's going to make the football more exciting. I think it's going to make Liverpool more dangerous. It's going to give opposition managers more things to consider in terms of how do you stop this team. It's going to be really difficult for them.
Yeah, no two ways about it. We are going to be even more excited if that was possible. And I suppose he adds on to Jeremy Frimpong, he adds on to Florian Wirtz. Now there's Milos Kerkez. It's steering into next season as well, but this even reinforces it. It's almost impossible at the moment to say the Reds aren't favourite for next season, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say so. Absolutely. I still have yet to see, yet to see that City and Arsenal have solved the problems that they had. I've not watched much of that Club World Cup, but I believe City have been still getting counted on quite easily, which is good news for Liverpool that they've not kind of solved that issue. Maybe they will, but it's that doesn't seem to have happened yet. So that's a big problem for them, and they need to get the signings right to make that happen. Arsenal seemingly just keep signing defenders and goalkeepers, and defensive midfielders. I still, they've got a lot to do to solve their problems. So, and Liverpool have already got the core of a title-winning team with some very good signings on top. So, I think with Liverpool as well, what you look at it and you think the signings they make generally are quite successful. So, you've got a lot of faith in what they have done. Whereas you can't always say that for the teams that are around them. So Arsenal, they might make signings going forward and you go, they've signed a striker, they've solved that problem. But that striker might not be very good. I hear Manchester United fans every single summer window saying, we've done it, we've solved all our issues. And then the players they've signed take to the pitch and it's like, oh God, no, we're still terrible. But whereas Liverpool, they tend to, generally speaking, they tend to work. So, I think they're massive favourites going into next season, with the quality that they've added and the quality they've already got. And it's up to the other teams to show that they can catch them.
Yeah, it really is. And probably there's no doubts that for people that there's about 86,000 questions around transfers. So I was never going to let him get away without it. I promise. We will ask for latest updates. That was always going to come up in this one. And I suppose a bit of a unique starting point because we've talked about so many players coming in, but with Frimpong, Wirtz, and now Kerkez are arising. The Napoli side, the Italian side's been Darwin Nunez a lot, but there's not really been much from sort of our side of the pond. But today it's starting to sort of accelerate with, various articles, Napoli plotting a bid for Nunez. We'll talk about Nunez first of all, but I suppose as a generic thing, is there an expectation that we've got to balance the books? We're going to see a few outgoings before anything else.
Yeah, it's not so much even balancing the books, is it? I guess it's kind of the squad's massive now. I think they've got 19 non-homegrown players. They need to get that down to 17 as a starting point. And obviously with Nunez, we've known for a while he's very, very likely to leave in this. I mean, he is going to leave in this window. I don't know why I keep being cautious around that one. Let's be honest with ourselves. He's going to go. So I'd actually missed this story today. I've been stuck in soft play all day, so I missed that one. But yeah, that definitely does seem to be the kind of the direction of travel on that one, doesn't it? That he will go and the Napoli are the front runners. So it's all about, the official bid hasn't come in yet, as far as I understand it. So is it going to be enough? How close is it? How close can you get them? I don't think Napoli are under any illusions as to it's going to have to be at least very close to their first bid to kind of 50 million. To even start a discussion. So, I wouldn't be shocked if they kind of go in somewhere around that. And then it's, Liverpool's decision then. But I mean, he is probably going to go, isn't he? I don't think they're going to be a million miles apart on valuation. And it's going to be a huge problem. That's my feeling anyway. So, it seems to be moving forward. And then that opens up spots, doesn't it? And you start to kind of sell a few. And then it's about, reinvesting that money that you raised then into the rest of the squad and seeing what they might do, which gives you almost a second transfer window after the first one, really.
It is crazy how, especially, and people have talked about the PSR figures. There's that deadline coming up in 4 days as well. With a few sales, Liverpool will almost go again, for want of a better phrase. And I suppose outgoings, there was a few other players I wanted to ask you about. We've talked about Harvey Elliott before, but it's right to give him a shout out with the double for England in the Euro Under-21 semi-finals. As a positive for us, and maybe this sounds harsh, it maybe makes 40 million, 50 million. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it certainly won't harm them, will it? Because, I mean, he's been probably England's standout player at the tournament in general, really. So he's just, I've sort of said it so many times. I love Harvey Elliott. I think he's a great lad. I think he's a great player. I think it's just such a shame Liverpool aren't trying to find a way to make this work, but I accept that they can't. And you've got Szoboszlai, you've got Wirtz can play in that central role. You've got Salah on that right hand side that Elliott likes. It's just not going to work, is it? So you probably have to do something. But I mean, from a cynical point of view, in terms of booking some pure profit, it doesn't really hurt, does it, if he's going out the Euros and doing what he's doing at the moment? But I find a sadness to the whole thing in terms of that he has to leave. But he's probably going to leave him with a big chunk of money, which is helpful from a purely selfish Liverpool perspective. But what a player he is, and wherever he goes, I'm sure he'll have a really good career because he's just a fabulous player, works hard, proper professional as well. So that's why he's so good.
Yeah, it does feel like it won't have hurt Premier League clubs and others just take a little bit more notice. And he will, of course, have the final. I think it's this weekend as well. So another goal all there sounds harsh, but could add to his value. And I mean, this was literally as we were getting ready to go live. And it's not often we have to use Google Translate on a post, but people will know the Colombian journalist, the media outlet, Pipe Sierra works for. Yeah, indeed. So, yeah. Lewis did this one, and again, it's Google Translate, people, so give us a bit of wiggle room on this. Luis Diaz's entourage are upset with Liverpool's stance. They feel the club has gone back on their word once again with the player, which I'm guessing relates to the contract. But as it also says, something similar happened before with his contract renewal, and now with the possibility of a transfer. I mean, that's literally in the last 20 minutes. What have you made of that one?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I was always surprised with the noises that were kind of coming from Diaz's side, really, in the build up to the summer, saying that, the expectation there'll be contract talks. That's never, ever been my understanding at any point, really, that was something that was going to happen. I know that had been the noise, or, we'll talk to him about his future in the summer, but
yeah,
I've never bought that. And I've never really been told that was going to be the case. It was always going to be with him. He might get sold if a decent amount of money comes because it's 2 years on the contract. But equally, if he wants to go to the last year, if he wants to go for free and we get another 2 years out of an excellent player like him, that's not a problem. But giving him a pay rise now at this stage of his career makes absolutely zero sense. It wouldn't be sensible to do it. So I totally understand why that's not on the agenda for Liverpool. So, and I'm amazed it's come as a surprise to his camp, to be honest, that wasn't, he could have rang me. I could have told them that, to be honest. I'm shocked by it, really. So I guess with this one, we're in a phase now where it's kind of, if he's not happy that he isn't getting the contract offer or whatever, then, then he's got to ask questions about what happens next. And I guess what happens next is, are you going to go? And for that to happen, the money has to be right that comes in for Liverpool to accept it. So, the pressure's on him, the pressure's on the clubs that are interested in to make it into a decision for Liverpool, because, as I say, they will happily ride this contract out. He's on relatively reasonable wages, albeit not as low as always gets said. He's a good player who plays in multiple positions. He works his socks off. Why would you be kicking him out? No chance. So, it's up to him. If he really wants to go and he wants to get that pay bump elsewhere, then he's got to go and find a club that will be willing to pay the money to get him out of Liverpool.
Is the cynical side of me, and you can correct me on this if I'm wrong, because the UK, your patch journals have all been consistent that he was never getting a new contract, but Pipe and obviously the Colombian side has always been there's a chance, there's expectations, there'll be talk. And now all of a sudden, shock horror, there is no talks. And obviously Luis Diaz is considering his future. And let's be honest, from the Saudi side, there will be a far bigger contract on offer there. Is it too cynical to sort of, are we putting 2 and 2 together and getting 27, or do you think there is something in that?
No, I mean, I guess I don't know whether it's kind of an attempt on his side of things to kind of soften the route out or make it clear that, oh, well, I had to go to get the money, and it's kind of playing it just a little bit of a game in that way. But in fact, it probably has to be that, because like I say, I cannot seriously accept that his side of things, his entourage, truly believed that there were going to be contract talks for a 28-year-old who you would then give a pay bump to for a contract he will be 33 at the end of, and he's not Mo Salah, by the way. So, yeah, maybe it's that. Maybe it's all part of the game, and it's just one step towards him going, and then we start to see the bids fly in. We'll have to see, but it doesn't look like it's going to be Barca, by the way, because they're pushing forward with Nico Williams, aren't they? So probably going to have to be Saudi now. Is he going to accept that? Is he willing to do that? If yes, then that looks like the likeliest outcome, doesn't it? And we'll have to wait for that bid to come in now.
Could be multiple exits on the cards in the near future. And your YouTube colleague, also patch journalist, tends to have more of a dance feel than a guitar, Mr. Lewis Steele. He's been writing and doing his Q&As. And naturally, there's some other rumoured incomings. There's a few on the picture there. From the incomings wise, Marc Guéhi seems to be a name that is prominent. Are we expecting possible developments maybe once Jarell Quansah finished the England tournament? Looks like he's going to sign for Bayer Leverkusen. That's all pretty much done, it seems. Could Marc Guéhi be the one, do you think, that's next in the door?
Yeah, he's just definitely a target, basically, and there's a spot opening up there. I mean, it's interesting how they sell it to him in terms of game time and all those kind of aspects of it. From the outside looking in, you saw what Quanta got last season. It wasn't an awful lot. So is it easy to sell that to Guéhi? We don't know how those conversations are going. But the one thing I can say for certain is that they like the player, and if the fee's reasonable, which they think it possibly can be with Crystal Palace, and being 1 year from the end of his contract, and obviously if he wants to move, that will help. Then yeah, we could see progress. I guess the massive thing I was told was, it kind of depends on how those conversations go and how they're able to kind of sell it to him. But you're not getting indications that he's completely not interested. So and Liverpool desperately need homegrown players as well, by the way. So this will be an important signing on that front. So it's one of those, could be kind of out of the blue that starts to progress. Really, we're just kind of waiting for that to happen.
Does feel that way, and like you said, it's a good point to make. If we're too over the overseas or non-homegrown quota, probably the few we've mentioned for outgoings as well, we'll have to see what develops. And I suppose the final one, I know it's your favourite topic to talk about, and to be fair, a lot of fans have referenced this. Alexander Isak, we've had various UK journos, patch journos. This just rumbles on and on and on. Is it almost until someone says, like Alexander Isak, I'm signing a new contract or I want to go, this is just going to keep rolling? And it is worth me mentioning to you, as a few have flagged today, Newcastle seem set to potentially spend 160 million or more, don't they?
Yeah, this is the thing. I did a YouTube video where I briefly mentioned this, and I'm really scared about. I said this in the video. I'm kind of scared of talking about this because you don't want to kind of turn it into anything bigger than it is, or get anybody to say, well, he said he's definitely coming or whatever. But this is the basics of it is, and I will say it time and time again, is that nobody's ruling it out, but equally a lot of things have to fall into place. So we're still in that position. But I think what is very, very interesting is kind of the noises from the Newcastle side of things have just gone. They've just softened with every passing week, haven't they? It's kind of gone from there's absolutely no chance we're selling. We've got Champions League football to they're going to come in with a bid in July. We're worried about it and all this kind. And it's just kind of getting softer and softer. And they're spending a lot of money, as you say. A club that did have PSR concerns up until recently are spending big again. So it's just one that I'd say I still think I would say it's unlikely because of all the things that have got to happen. Big sales for Liverpool to open up the spots. The amount they've got to bid has got to be accepted, and it's got to be something they think is reasonable. All the several other elements that are there. Newcastle being willing to sell his contract, the fact they're doing okay at the moment, all these things. So it makes it very, very difficult to do and difficult to see it happening. But equally, people at Liverpool would just say there's no chance, and they're not saying that. So maybe.
It ultimately does. And I get it, as people will say. It comes down to that thing right now that no one is saying no, are they? Maybe that's the best way of phrasing it. There's no absolute shutdown. There's no absolute, it's definitely not going to happen. There is a little bit of uncertainty there, but we will see what develops on that. And for the final point, we'll see if we can get it fully working. But we did want to have a quick look at the AI tactics board just to see how you think it might unfold this season. Now, before anyone jumps on this, people, I fully understand that there is potential. It could be Conor Bradley at right back. The setup's different and how it will work. But if we are provisionally, David, putting Florian Wirtz in the team, Milos Kerkez in the team, and Frimpong in the team, is that a shape that you see it working out as, or anything different for you at all?
Yeah, it's interesting with Wirtz, isn't it? Because there's been a lot of talk of him being in the 10, but I just think, well, what does that mean for Szoboszlai? And I just don't think you can afford to take him out the team. I know there's so much talk about end product or whatever, but you missed him massively when he wasn't there last season. He covers so much ground. If McAllister gets run past, he's quick enough to get the other side of him and get the other side of the attacker. I just, those elements are crucial, covering off the fact that Salah basically didn't have to run last season. I think losing that is too much. So I wonder about that Wirtz off the left-hand side and whether that's the way to do it, because, you wanted your wingers last season, the way they played it, really, to be in those positions, didn't you? To kind of cut inside and be kind of very, very central rather than hugging the touchline. Liverpool don't ever want the wingers there, particularly if you've got fullbacks who are playing in this way where they're right on the outside, as I say, playing like 90s wingers. There's so much scope there for your wingers, so to speak, to basically be inside forwards, which is exactly what you want Salah doing. It's exactly what you'd want Wirtz doing, really. So I'm not against that as an idea, and it makes a lot of sense to me, really. I guess the kind of mad thing is if you add Isak into that, and he's very much a traditional centre forward rather than a kind of drops in and links it guy, maybe that messes things up a little bit. But there's also potential, of course, for Wirtz to maybe be in that false nine role from time to time, and you play an orthodox winger on the left. But there's so many possibilities. I honestly, I could not tell you or even have a kind of solid guess. And this is why I'm really excited for preseason this time, because there's a lot for us to kind of learn and see, and how these players all play and fit together. It's one of the most exciting preseasons I can kind of remember, really.
I must admit, for Monday's Media Matters, I have got a few questions around pre-season because, it'll be July before you know it and the players are back. So we'll be sort of working into that, but we can save it to them. The final question, probably to finish this, doesn't relate to transfers. How's the guitar practicing going right now?
It's absolutely not happening, by the way. You can keep saying it, but there's just no chance. And I don't so much have to practice these days. I honestly think I've been playing now for like 30 years. So, it's just never happening though. But it's a nice try.
Well, ladies and gents, if the Isak one happens, I think this will have to line up with it, but we'll see.
There you go. Actually, I can make that promise.
There you go. But we'll see what's happening. All we know for definite, ladies and gents, is Milos Kerkez is now a red, likely to be the first choice left back. There's some question marks around other squad members, but it is right to be excited with everything that's coming up. All it leaves me to say as ever is, David, for the time, the insight, and looking at it all thoroughly with us, it is much appreciated.
Thanks for having me.
And ladies and gents, that was a Media Matters special for Anfield Index.